Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to Weekly Wildlife Wisdom. So far, I've been your host, Zoo Yeti, and happy Ice Age Day. Well, technically, it's Ice Age Europe, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about Ice Age animals from throughout the whole world. So let's go into it, featuring 7 awesome animals that lived during the Pleistocene epoch. Starting with the cave hyena, also known as the Ice Age hyena. It was a paleo subspecies of the spotted hyena, which dwelled throughout Eurasia from the Iberian Peninsula to eastern Siberia during the Pleistocene and early Holocene epochs, around 500,000 to 11,000 years ago. Although the first account of the cave hyena was given by Georges Cuvier in 1812, the skeletal fragments of cave hyenas have been described in scientific literature since the 18th century, though they were frequently misidentified as anywhere from cattle to lions to seals. The past presence of hyenas in Europe was revealed after William Buckland's examination of the contents of Kirkdale Cave, which was discovered to have once been the location of several hyena den sites. Buckland's findings were then followed by further discoveries by Clift and Whitby in Orriston and Plymouth. Since then, several hundred skeletons have been recovered, making the cave hyena one of the best-known mammals of the Ice Age. Reaching around 3.5 feet tall, 5 feet in length, and 220 pounds in weight, the cave hyena was a highly specialized animal, with its progressive and regressive features being more developed than its modern African relative. Aside from the increased size and robustness, the main differences between the cave hyena and the spotted hyena lie in their different length of the bones in their hind and front limbs. In the cave hyena, the humerus and femur were larger and longer, indicating an adaptation to different environments than those of the spotted hyena. Additionally, rock paintings in Lascaux and Chauvet caves indicate that the cave hyena had characteristic patches and mane of a spotted hyena, but had much longer and thicker fur. In life, the cave hyena would have lived in tight-knit cackles, which sheltered in caves dotted along the vast mammoth steppe grassland, and here they fulfilled the role of both hunter and scavenger, specializing in large game such as horses, bison, woolly rhinos, young mammoths, cave bears, and even Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Next up, we have Macrauchenia, which was a large, long neck and long limb, 3-toed mammal in the order Lithotraptorna. Macrauchenia lived throughout South America from the late Miocene to the late Pleistocene, around 7 million years ago to 10,000 years ago. The first known remains of Macrauchenia, consisting of some leg bones and vertebrae, were purchased by Charles Darwin at Port St. Juliana, Argentina on February 9, 1834, during his voyage on the HMS Beagle. Darwin initially described the animal as a species of mastodon, but upon the Beagle's return to Europe in 1837, he sought out the opinion of Richard Owen, who identified the bones as belonging to a gigantic creature resembling a llama or camel, which Owen then named Macrauchenia, Pataconica, from the original Greek terms meaning of macros, meaning large or long, and achun, meaning neck. Since then, many more Macrauchenia fossils have been found throughout much of South America, with 4 species being currently recognized, those being M. pataconica, M. ulumensis, M. formosa, and M. intermedia, reaching 9 to 10 feet in length, 5 to 7 feet tall, and 1,700 to 2,300 pounds in weight. Macrauchenia is a strange creature which sported a bizarre mix of body features. It had similar body proportions to a camel, but lacked a hump. It had rhinoceros-like feet, and front legs which had shorter upper portions and longer lower portions, making it suited for running, but the back legs had larger upper portions and shorter lower portions, making it more suited for slow, prolonged walking. Finally, its most famous feature was a small taper-like trunk or well-developed giraffe-like prehensile lip that grew from the tip of its snout. Macrauchenia was an extraordinarily adaptable creature that lived throughout a wide range of habitats, including savanna, wetland, scrubland, rainforest, dry forest, and even cloud forest, and alpine grasslands, up to 13,000 feet in elevation. It fulfilled the niche of opportunistic herbivore that both browsed on leaves of shrubs and trees and grazed upon grasses and forbs. Next up, we have Pelagornis, which is an extinct genus of prehistoric pseudotoothed birds in the order Odontopterygiformes that lived from the late Oligocene to the early Pleistocene epochs, around 25 million to 2.5 million years ago, throughout Africa, Eurasia, North and South America, Australia, and New Zealand. The first remains of Pelagornis consisted of a left humerus the size of a human arm that was unearthed from early Miocene sediments in Armagnac, France, by one Dr. Lartet in 1857, who dubbed the animal Pelagornis myocensis, in what Dr. Storns L. Olson considered the, and I quote, the most unimaginative name ever applied to a fossil, which does in no way refer to the bird's startling and unprecedented proportions, merely meaning Miocene pelagic bird. P. myocensis was the first pseudotoothed bird species to be described, and like many pseudotoothed birds, it was initially believed to be a relative of the albatrosses or procalariforms, but subsequently placed in the pelicaniforms along with pelicans and storks. Since 1857, several more specimens of Pelagornis have been found on every continent on Earth, barring Antarctica, with 4 species being currently recognized: P. myocensis, P. martinonacus, P. chilensis, and P. sandersi. Pelagornis was one of the larger pseudotoothed birds, with most species reaching around 30 to 50 pounds in weight, 3 to 4 feet tall, and sporting a wingspan of 16 to 18 feet. However, the species P. sandersi reached 50 to 90 pounds in weight, 4 to 5 feet tall, and had a 20 to 24 foot wingspan, making it one of, if not the largest birds to ever fly. Pelagornis had a stout but extremely light-boned body, webbed feet, and long, narrow wings resembling those of an albatross. Its large beak sported bony tooth-like serrations, which would have allowed Pelagornis to grab hold of slippery prey such as fish and cephalopods like squid. Overall, Pelagornis is thought to have had a similar lifestyle to that of albatrosses, tropic birds, and frigate birds of today, nesting periodically on high cliffs and sea spires as it soared vast distances over open oceans in search of food. Next up, we have Bison Latifrons, also known as the giant bison or longhorned bison, is an extinct species of bison that lived in North America during the Pleistocene epoch, ranging from Alaska to Mexico, some 240,000 to 20,000 years ago. Reaching 15 to 16 feet in length, 7.5 to 8 feet tall at the withers, and 2,700 to 4,400 pounds, it was the largest and heaviest bovid to ever live in North America, and amongst the largest ruminants to ever live. The horns of B. latifrons measured 7 to 8 feet from tip to tip, and are truly massive compared with the horns of modern American bison, which range around 2 to 3 feet from tip to tip, this being nearly triple in width, triple the size. These large, thick horns are believed to have been employed as both a visual deterrent and powerful weapon to use against carnivores, such as the saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, and giant short-faced bears. Males would have also utilized these horns to establish dominance in battle with other males for the right to mate. Unlike many other prehistoric megafauna that died out and left no living descendants, B. latifrons evolved into the smaller Bison antiquus, which made it better adapted to flourish on the more arid open plains. P. antiquus then in turn evolved to the yet smaller modern American bison, bison, some 10,000 years ago. Next up, we have Stellers sea cow, which is an extinct species of large Sirenian and close relative of the modern dugongs and manatees. Stellers sea cow was first described in 1741 by George Wilhelm Steller, while he and his crew were shipwrecked on Bering Island for about a year. During this time, Steller researched much of the wildlife of the Bering Sea between Alaska and Russia, recognizing that the waters around the Commander Islands that were home to a plethora of unique animals, including sea otters, Steller sea lions, orcas, Steller sea eagles, northern fur seals, and the last relic population of sea cows. These Steller sea cows once inhabited the kelp forest throughout much of the northern Pacific, to as far south as Mexico on the western coast of North America, and down past Japan on the eastern coast of Asia. Eurasia. And they lived during the Pleistocene and late Pliocene, but over time they were forced into ever smaller habitats as a result of rising sea levels, climate change, and hunting by indigenous humans. Steller's accounts were included in his posthumous publication, The Beast of the Sea, which was published in 1751 by the Russian Academy of Sciences. Zoologist Edhard von Zimmermann formally described Steller's sea cow in 1780 as Montani gigas. Biologist Anders Johann Retzius in 1794 put the sea cow in the genus Hydrodalamus, with the specific name being Stellerni, in honor of Steller. Reaching 26 to 30 feet in length and 8 to 11 tons in weight, the Steller sea cow was much larger than any modern Sirenian and had a thick layer of blubber to insulate from the cold. Its thick skin was brown to black in coloration, with some individuals sporting spots of white. Its tail was forked like that of dugongs. Lacking true teeth, it had an array of white bristles on its upper lip and two keratinous plates within its mouth for chewing kelp and seagrass. Like other Sirenians, it was a highly social and gregarious species which lived in small, tight-knit pods. Unfortunately, the discovery of this animal by Europeans also spelt their demise, and by 1768, the Steller sea cow was hunted to extinction for its meat, fat, and hide. Next up we have Quinkana, which is an extinct genus of Macrauchenia crocodilians, which lived in Australia from the Miocene to the Pleistocene, around 28 million to 40,000 years ago. The first remains of Quinkana, consisting of a partial skull, were unearthed in the Chillagoe caves of northern Queensland in 1970 by Lindsay Hawkins and described by Ralph Molnar in 1981. Its generic name was derived from Quincan, which is the term for spirit from the northern Queensland Aboriginal Guju Yalanji people. Quincans are represented by crocodiles in several instances of southeastern Cape York rock paintings. Since then, several more specimens have been unearthed, and today 4 species of Quinkana are recognized: Q. fortistrum, Q. temara, Q. barbara, and Q. melboldi. There is considerable size variation in the species of Quinkana, with earlier species like Q. melboldi and Q. barbara reach around 4.5 to 6.5 feet in length, while later species, such as Q. temara, reached around 10 feet in length, and the latest species, Q. fortistrum, being the largest at upwards of 20 feet in length and 800 pounds in weight. Quinkana's broad snout, skull crest, long, strong, well-developed front legs, and knife-like zyphodont teeth indicate they had a mostly terrestrial lifestyle. While most modern crocodilians are primarily aquatic and mostly move across land by sliding on their bellies, the long legs of Quinkana would have enabled them to support and carry the body clear off the ground, and while the conical teeth of modern crocs are used for holding onto and drowning prey, Quinkana's knife-like teeth were designed to slice into prey and quickly kill it. Quinkana was one of the latest surviving terrestrial crocodiles and disappears from the fossil records as recently as 40,000 years ago, around the same time as many of Australia's megafauna also disappeared as a result of humans arriving on the continent and forever changing both the climate and landscape through the damming and rerouting of rivers and extensive use for fire to hunt and clear land. Our final animal of the week is Deinotherium, which is an extinct genus of large elephant-like proboscidean that lived throughout Africa, Europe, the Arabian Peninsula, India, and Southeast Asia from the Middle Miocene to the early Pleistocene, around 16 million years ago to 1 million years ago. The first remains of Deinotherium were unearthed in the early 17th century by a French surgeon and con artist named Mauricio, in an area known as the Field of Giants near Lyon, France. Mauricio initially exhibited these bones as that of a biblical giant which once ruled France, until he was exposed and the bones were confiscated by the French National Museum of Natural History. In 1775, researchers recognized the bones as belonging to an animal similar to that of a mammoth, and during the late 18th century and early 19th century, George Cuvier hypothesized that they actually belonged to a large tapir with upward curving tusks, which he named Tapir giganticus, while others suggested that Deinotherium was a manatee-like creature that used its tusks to anchor itself into the seafloor while sleeping. Jonathan Jacob von Kamp dubbed these animals Deinotherium, meaning terrible beasts in Greek, in 1829 and believed them to be an evolutionary link between sloths and mastodons, before additional remains recovered in the 1800s solidified Deinotherium's position within Proboscidea. Today, 3 species are considered to be valid, including D. indicum, D. giganticum, and D. bosasi, reaching 11 to 14 feet tall at the shoulders and weighing 8 to 13 tons in weight. Deinotherium was one of the largest land animals to ever live. 2 things that make Deinotherium stand out from amongst other elephants were their short yet more flexible trunk and its 2 downward pointing short recurved tusks that emerge from the lower jaw as opposed to the upper jaw in other elephants. It is thought that these tusks were used to break branches, strip bark off of trees, and dig for roots and tubers. In life, Deinotherium would have preferred open woodland habitats where it traveled in small, close-knit herds as it browsed on various forms of vegetation. As always, take care to my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Happy Ice Age Day!